I like my coffee like I like my shoes. Bold. What's up guys, my name is Brock, you're watching The Modest Man, and today we're talking about bold shoes. First off, I'd like to thank Ace Marks for supporting The Modest Man and making this video possible. You may have seen me wearing the Ace Marks black cap-toe Oxfords in my Indochino review, or maybe you saw me feature these shoes in my shoe collection video. I've been a fan of Ace Marks ever since I met the founders at StyleCon and helped support their Kickstarter campaign earlier this year. Their shoes are handcrafted in Italy in small batches using the Blake Flex Stitch construction. So that means they're lightweight and comfy, which is not always the case with high quality dress shoes. So if you're in the market for new dress shoes, I can highly recommend Ace Marks. They actually specialize in bold shoes, which is what we're going to discuss in this video. Okay, so what are bold shoes and why would you want to wear them? Defining or describing bold shoes is actually pretty easy. In fact, there are two defining characteristics that you can look for. But first I want to talk about the why. Believe it or not, I didn't really care about style or my appearance until my mid-20s. And I was just a poorly dressed guy. I didn't even know that I was making mistakes, and I was making every mistake in the book. So when I finally started caring about style and trying to dress well, my mission was just to avoid mistakes. You know, so I wasn't trying to stand out with what I was wearing or, you know, get noticed for being a well-dressed guy. I was just trying to avoid being noticed as a poorly dressed guy. You know, I was just trying to avoid mistakes. Fast forward a few years, I've come a long way on my style journey, and now I feel pretty confident that I know how to avoid making mistakes with what I wear. And I have a pretty complete wardrobe, you know, it's like ready for any occasion. So now, and you know, you might have experienced this too, like depending on where you are in your style journey, once you get comfortable and confident with style and you know, with dressing yourself, you start to sort of want to take some more risks and step out of your comfort zone. And so I find myself wanting to, you know, experiment with trends a little more and buy some statement pieces, you know, or some clothing and accessories that are a little more unique, you know, that will help set me apart from other guys. And depending on where you are in your style journey, you might feel the same way. Don't get me wrong, I'm not like chasing after trends or wearing anything too crazy. I just want to express myself a little bit and, you know, make some more interesting choices and add some more interesting items to my wardrobe. And I think that bold shoes are a great way to add some interest and some personality to your wardrobe. But I also think it can backfire, you know, and I think there are a lot of shoes out there that are marketed as bold shoes that are really just, you know, overly trendy or even borderline tacky. So you gotta watch out for that. So there are two things that you can look for, two characteristics that you can look for in a bold shoe that's still gonna be timeless and not look ridiculous. So the two things are contrasting colors and mixed materials. So let's talk about colors first. So most dress shoes are one color, you know, black, brown. I mean, every guy has a pair of brown leather dress shoes. So to set yourself apart and wear a shoe that has a little more flair, a little more spice to it, you can find a shoe that has more than one color. So for example, these two-tone dark brown on light brown Oxfords, cap-toe Oxfords from Ace Marks. It's just slightly different than your normal brown shoe, but it's way more interesting. And at the same time, it's still got the same classic silhouette as, you know, any other well-built Oxford. So it's still classic, it's still timeless, you know, you can still wear it with a variety of outfits, but it's unique. You're not gonna see a lot of guys with a shoe like this. Now, one interesting note about contrast is the more contrast there is, the more bold that shoe is gonna look and the more attention it's gonna draw. And also, more contrast means more casual. So, for example, you know, light brown and dark brown, not a huge difference between those two colors, but if it was dark brown and light blue, that would be a very bold shoe. People would notice it, you'd probably get, you know, some comments, hopefully compliments, and it would also be an inherently more casual shoe than this one. Now, in the same way, materials can be mixed and matched to create an interesting, kind of more bold look. For example, I'm a big fan of suede, you know, and like you maybe, I have a couple pairs of suede shoes or boots. But What I don't have and what I don't see very often is a shoe that's made from leather and suede. You know, most of the times a shoe is either all suede or all leather. But if you want a more bold look, you can find a shoe that is created from mixed materials, so like leather and suede. And this combination of different materials kind of adds like a depth and texture and interest to your shoe that you really just don't get if you're only using one material. Now granted, since this isn't a very common type of shoe, it is a little less versatile, you know, than like an all leather shoe or an all suede shoe, and it will get noticed more. You know, it will draw more attention than a standard leather shoe, but that's kind of the point of a bold shoe. And again, if it's like brown on brown, it's pretty subtle, you know, it's not too out there. You know, most guys could pull that off. Now, if you were to wear a shoe that was made with, you know, blue suede and dark brown leather, that would be more contrast, you know, and that would be a more bold look. So you definitely, those shoes would definitely get noticed, and you definitely get some comments and compliments on those shoes. So now that we've covered what to look for in a bold shoe or what makes a shoe bold, the question is, should you wear them? Well, I'll be honest, you know, they're not for everybody. I think that you should focus on getting your staple shoe collection down, you know, so your black Oxford, your brown wingtips, you know, maybe burgundy loafers, work boots, sneakers, stuff like that. But once you feel like you have a pretty good collection, especially of dress shoes, or at least the essentials, I think it's a great idea to add at least one pair of bold shoes to your collection. You know, one great thing about a pair of shoes like this is you're not gonna run into another guy wearing them. And I don't know if you've ever run into somebody who has like the same J. Crew shirt, you know, or the same Allen Edmonds shoes as you. And it's kind of cool because you're both wearing the same thing, but it's also like, you know, you don't feel very unique when that happens. So adding a bold shoe to your collection is one way to ensure that you always look and feel like an individual. Now, the other great thing about, you know, a shoe like this is it's a conversation starter. Like any other kind of interesting accessory, you know, people will comment on it, and it kind of gives people a reason to start a conversation with you. And the last benefit of the bold shoe is that it just radiates confidence, because let's be honest, you have to have a certain amount of confidence in yourself and also in your style to rock shoes like this. They're either two-toned, you know, with contrasting colors or mixed materials. So bold shoes definitely radiate confidence in kind of a subtle way, which I think for most guys is a good thing. All right, I would really like to hear your thoughts about the bold shoes. So, you know, would you wear them? Do you have any in your collection? Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions. And until next time, stay stylish.